And now it's time for our last panel. So everybody, woo, how are you doing? All right. So I'm going to take off my venture capital hat now for the last panel, and I'm going to put on my animal communicator hat. So I will introduce myself again. My name is Gale Wilkinson. I am moderating this last panel, and I have not announced this publicly yet, but I am leaving venture capital. It will take me a long time to do that. As you've heard, it is a very long endeavor, but I'm not raising another fund, and I'm doing that because I feel very compelled to help animals. And as part of my journey in the last decade, I've realized that I can actually telepathically speak to animals, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And I wanted to bring some amazing guests here to talk about how can we leverage energy work, spirituality, and intuition in business. So this is for every single person in the room, and I hope you take something from it because we're all here for a reason. So quick intros, please. Robyn.
I'm Robyn Miller Brecker. And I'm co-founder and president of Seeking Center, which is a media company which focuses on spirituality and wellness through content, community, and experiences. I'm also the co-host of Seeking Center, the podcast, and I'm an intuitive.
I'm Michelle Nolan. I am a tarot therapist, which I'm sure a lot of you are going to ask that question, what that is. Also a channel, but before my prior life, I've always been an entrepreneur as well. And I am a creative photographer and director.
I'm Mary Beth Rodriguez. I am the owner and founder of a wellness company called With Ritual. We focus on creating nourishing food rituals you can incorporate into your everyday life. I have a background in the culinary world. I was a chef and food stylist for chefs like Emerald and Padma Lakshmi. And I also do cacao ceremonies as a practice in my personal wellness journey.
There are so many places we can go here, but let's start by defining what WooWoo is. Robyn.
Okay. So to me, woo-woo refers to an aspect of spirituality that feels a bit out there. And for me, that is now normalizing it and making it mainstream.
Woo to me is anything in the unknown. So I would classify anything that we cannot see, cannot touch, but we feel. So anything in that vein that applies to business, our actions, our decisions, but we don't necessarily have the data for, at least not yet, that is what I consider woo-woo.
To me, woo-woo is an ongoing journey to reconnect with our inner grace and the divine spirit that's within all of us. And it's about trying practices from all around the world and finding out how we can incorporate them into our everyday lives so we can ground ourselves in our busy lives.
Robyn, will you start off by telling us how Seeking Center came to be?
I sure will. And I'm really fortunate because I have part of Seeking Center here with me, with Gale and with Michelle. So it's really exciting to see where I've come over the last few years. So Seeking Center started for me from a crossroads moment in my own life in 2018. I'd been working for Oprah for almost 20 years. And I found myself, surprisingly to me, at a place where I felt like my soul was dying and I did not know what to do. And even though I had worked with all of these spiritual teachers and thought leaders that came through our doors, it was actually a spiritual medium that I met in 2010 that most profoundly changed my life. Because that spiritual medium reconnected me with my father, who had passed away when I was 12. And at that moment, I realized, for me, that we never really die. We just change form. And in that session, she also gave me so much guidance that helped me at that point in my life. So when I found myself at this point in 2018, I made an appointment with a trusted spiritual medium because I thought maybe that's how I'll get some guidance to move forward. And I did. And not only did I leave that session feeling much more hopeful with some direction, within a month to 6 weeks, I'd say 4 to 6 weeks, I ended up having a series of spiritual synchronicities fall into my lap. I ended up meeting a psychic, a shaman, an astrologer, and another medium. And none of those people knew me prior. The only person that had known me at all was the first medium. And none of those people knew each other. And yet they all told me the same thing. They all gave me similar timing. They used similar phrases. And when that happens, you have to pay attention. And so I did. And I started to do some more soul work. And I came up with a plan. And my plan was to bring these types of experiences through media to as many people as I can, because I wanted to, and I am transforming lives by bringing people to trusted practitioners. And I'm educating, inspiring, and engaging and entertaining people in that way, but in so much so that it ends up helping them actually make a change in their lives.
And if you were curious about any of this stuff, she just launched the site, so you can go to seekingcenter.com and look at it. I've been advising for a couple years and love what she's doing. Also heard Michelle on the podcast for Seeking Center, which is how I met Michelle. And please tell us, Michelle, what exactly is tarot therapy?
So I'm sure all of you know what tarot cards are. My practice is from a psycho-spiritual platform. So it takes a little bit of Carl Jungian approach to tarot and psychology, and a little bit of astrology, and a little bit of my personal gifts as an empath and an intuitive channel. So all that blended up together is very deep dive sessions. A lot of people come through their own therapist now because we are starting to believe that, hopefully gaining that belief system, that we are more than just our brain and our logic. We are spiritual beings. So having a very human experience. So that blend is a very new approach to therapy.
MB, could you share with us how you switched from corporate into the wellness world?
Several years ago, I was working in the corporate world. I was managing a big buying team at an e-commerce startup, and I had a health scare. And I had to do radiation therapy 5 days a week for an extended period of time. So it started me on a wellness journey to figure out, how can I create space to let my body heal while I'm working a busy job? So I tried, acupuncture, meditation, and eating a really rich plant-based diet. And that led me to cacao and matcha, and incorporating these rituals into my everyday morning routine. And I found that I talked to a lot of women, and a lot of women, especially women of color, said, I'm so busy, I really want some rituals to incorporate to my everyday life. So I took a leap, left the startup world, and started my business based on that.
Wonderful. Robyn, what's a personal moment where intuition, energy work, or something spiritual deeply impacted a business decision that you made?
So this goes back to that time where I knew I wanted to make a change, and I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and it was going to start, I thought, with a show. And I was actually still working for Oprah, and I was working on a project with my now business partner, Karen. And the project ended, and we were having a post-mortem meeting. And we were I was on Zoom. A lot of the team was actually either in New York or in LA, and I was in Chicago. And so we're on Zoom, and right before the meeting started, I talked about this article that I was going to publish on Oprah.com called "The Night a Medium Changed My Life." And everybody wanted to talk about the afterlife and what happens when we die. And we had to get going on the meeting. So I said, listen, we have to get going, but we're going to talk about this on my show one day. And then we just started the meeting, and everyone looked at me like, what is she talking about? And after it, Karen, who I was working on this project with, called me, and she said, what were you talking about before we started that meeting? And I told her my journey. I told her my intention of leaving Oprah. And she talked to me about her journey. And she actually came to Discovery Networks because she had this whole idea of creating a network around spirituality and wellness. And she said, can I send you my deck, which is how I got my job? And I said, please. So she sent it to me. And as I'm going through the deck, I'm loving it because it's taking my show idea and it's expanding it beyond what I had thought of. And I went to go save it on my computer. And when I did that, I stopped in my tracks because the name of the file was my presentation _ 1117 _ 2015. And to me, 1117 are my guiding numbers in life because that was my dad's birthday. And I knew with every fiber in my being that I was supposed to work with Karen. And here we are 6 years later.
Numbers are signs, one of many.
Yes, big time.
All right. Michelle, how do you distinguish between fear, ego, and true intuitive guidance when making high-stakes decisions?
Well, I'm going to use this since I'm the practitioner and client stories. Fear and ego usually go very, very hand in hand. So I would classify that more similar than using your intuition. What fear and ego generally looks like is very reactive. Whether that's externally or internally, doesn't matter. The idea that fear and ego carry emotion. So let's say you're working through a problem or trying to come to a decision. There is usually some emotion attached to that when you're thinking that through, whether that be anxiety, or whether that be panic, or whether that be sometimes pride, or whether it be looking for a certain amount of validation, so feeling like you're overly confident, but it really is attached to an emotion. Intuition, on the other hand, which we've all experienced because we're all intuitive beings, is a softer whisper. Intuition is really a very neutralized emotion. It doesn't have emotion at all. It is very calm, it is very peaceful, and it has a certainty, a grounded certainty that we just have a knowing is true. We might not be able to explain that. We might not be able to tell others how that came to be or why that answer is correct. But internally, that's our compass. That's what we know. So I would argue in every situation, if you want to be more guided by your intuitive self, is that look to see what your reactions are from an internal level if you are carrying an emotion attached to that. If you are not carrying an emotion attached to that and it feels like a subtle whisper, that's probably on the long side of intuition.
Love that definition. MB, what are some regular practices that you use to stay clear and aligned while navigating the complexity of the business world?
Yes, so coming from the business world as well, I felt having a morning ritual really helped me in my healing and my journey. I do transcendental meditation, sound healing, and for me, cacao ceremony was a really great way to ground myself in the morning. Also, before really big meetings or big decisions, I do a lot of visualization and breath work. It's really about taking just a few minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes in the afternoon to kind of visualize what you want from your meeting and what your vision is for the outcome of it.
So can we really shift outcomes by shifting energy? So would love to hear a quick story from each of you. We'll start with Robyn and go down about how shifting your intention or shifting energy actually worked.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is actually something that I do consistently. So I see this on a consistent level where something similar to what MB just said, which is if I set that intention for a meeting that I want to have another meeting, let's say, or I want to end up creating a partnership with someone, and I make that clear intention before we start that meeting. I do that silently to myself. And I also, okay, here's the woo-woo, I send energy to that meeting, right? So I will literally visualize. I love what you said about visualizing the outcome, which I do, but I also actually visualize a bubble around us, that's all positive energy. And honestly, it almost always works, and it always ends up better than I expected. And this is something that I do almost every day.
So I'm going to use a client example. He's an entrepreneur in finance and has always had a traditional job. Also has an entrepreneurial real estate side. And in that walk in limbo of when do I leave my 9-to-5 job and jump fully into my entrepreneurial spirit. Through our session, he repeated a lot during that session, which is my job to listen to as the therapist. He said multiple times over, I never not had a paycheck. What am I going to do? I never not had a paycheck. I don't know what to do. I've never not had a paycheck. So I got him over time to reframe that same statement, which arguably is a mindset change. This is not, we didn't change the terminology, we didn't change the definition. Same statement. I never not had a paycheck. I never not had a paycheck. I never not had a paycheck. So ultimately, his mindset shifted in the sense that when he was ready to take that risk, when he was ready to take that jump, his mindset was, I will be fine. I've never not had a paycheck.
For me, it was when I started my business, and it was about creating rituals into my daily life that give me a really high vibration, so that I could attract vendors, designers, partners that I work with that make the product for me, that also have a high vibration. And I found in doing that, you attract the people into your business that really help you create a business that is your vision, that's authentic to your voice.
Michelle, do you have another example about how we could reconcile data-driven strategy with gut instinct?
Yes, another client. Sorry, I'm using all my clients, but I'm not going to name them. She is a very brilliant woman at Stanford, and she is a doctor and also a researcher and educator. Her path had led her to a place where she was at Stanford for quite some time working, and then she had a brutal accident and brain damage. After the healing process of all that, which took years, she realized after she was rehabbed, her brain actually had to rewire. She had to learn, her neurons had to make other pathways, partly paralyzed, but she wanted, obviously, her brain to be functioning enough to continue her work. She did that, and to a lot of, I would say, the woo of all of this was that even some of her colleagues could not understand how she problem solved some of her patients' problems, but more importantly, where it's at right now, is she created a drug that is actually in trials as we speak, and is actually becoming very successful, or at least in trials. So I will say her takeaway, and it's not mine, but her takeaway, and I'm sharing it with you today because I think it's important, is that there was no data supporting the solutions that she came up with. There was no logic to it whatsoever. She classifies as this rewiring of her brain allowed her to creative problem solve in a way that she never expected, or really didn't have any education to come up with these ideas or come up with this solution. So I would say that logic is great and data is great, but as we are moving into AI even further, that our spiritual self, our creative self, which is really creative energy, is birth energy, and it is everyone here who's entrepreneurial is creative, right? That is actually what we need more of. We need creative solutions, we need creative ideas, and we need the human experience to be a part of that.
And it's just fun.
And it's just fun.
It's just more fun to be woo-woo. There could be some of you out there that do this, and let's get a show of hands. Anybody into this stuff?
Oh,
Anybody
yeah.
woo-woo curious? No one's woo-woo curious? Okay. If for those of you that are, but maybe think, I'm worried about what people are going to think because this stuff is nuts. Like for me to just sit up here and tell you I can speak telepathically to animals, I will tell you also as a finance person and a data person, like that is insane that I have just said that. In fact, when I had some early people read my book, Advanced Reader Copies, one of them came to me, he's a very good friend and advisor for many years, and he said, Gale, you should publish that under a pseudonym. And I was like, Tony, I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm just going to put my name on it. He was like, okay. But I think it's important for us to just recognize, like, this stuff is coming in more. And Robyn, I have a question for you about this. Do you think it's becoming more acceptable to leverage woo-woo and spiritual intuition in business?
Absolutely. And I also, before I answer that, I also want to say that everyone in this room has intuition. You all are where you are because of your intuition. And most of you know your calling, because if you are doing what you're doing at the level that you're doing it, or you are an entrepreneur, you have to believe in something so much. That to me is a calling. So I just wanted to say that. And then, yes, I do believe it's becoming more accepted, because I know I can speak for Michelle and I, we are being asked to come in and actually teach intuition to teams, and really help them understand and listen to that inner voice, those whispers that Michelle was talking about. many actually of our astrologers that are part of the Seeker Collective are being asked to come in and look at teams' astrological birth charts so that the manager or executive can better understand how people can work together. And we actually also have an intuitive energy healing practitioner who's badass, and she's being asked to come into organizations and meet individually with different members of the team as well as the managers so that she can help clear energetic blocks and emotional wounds. And we like to say she's like the Wendy from Billions. So I know this is happening because we're being asked to do it at firms and companies and corporations that you probably wouldn't expect.
Love that. So before we start to wrap up, MB, tell us more about a cacao ceremony. What is that?
So a cacao ritual is a beautiful ritual from the Mesoamerican tradition. And you're really using high quality ceremonial grade cacao beans and you're drinking it in a warm beverage. And cacao opens up your heart chakra. So it makes you more open emotionally and spiritually. So whether you're doing it as a guided ceremony or you're doing it by yourself in the morning as part of your morning ritual, it really opens you up emotionally to take stock of where you are emotionally, how you're feeling, and also, where is your body and spirit and how can you ground yourself? So it's really beautiful practice, and there's a lot of resources online to find other people who are into cacao ceremonies.
Okay, we're going to do some rapid fire questions. For everybody, what's one woo tool or ritual that has truly changed the way you show up as a leader?
I think I'll go first. I would say at night, it's really important to clear your energy. As Michelle was saying, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And we pick up energy from everything. Even if you don't leave your house that day and you're just on Zoom, you're picking up people's energy. And so at night, taking what I like to say, the visual of an energetic shower above you and just rinsing all that energy that does not serve you, that's other people's, off of you, having that go down a drain and then replacing it with what I like to say, golden light, all that goes all through you, that will help you, I think, going forward, because then you're in your own protective energy.
Well, I have to say tarot, so that's the first one.
Of course.
Of course. But also sound healing, sound bath. I'm a music girl at heart, so frequencies are very important to me, and that always works for me.
I'll go with morning rituals. I know I talked with Robyn about this before, and just taking 3 to 5 minutes in the morning, make a cup of tea, journal for 3 minutes, just create an intention, and take a little bit of space for yourself.
Your favorite energy clearing tool, you can only pick one out of sage, essential oils, or crystals.
Crystals.
Palo Santo, it's the shit.
I will go with essential oils. I like copal and Palo Santo as well.
What is your spirit animal?
White wolf.
This year, a deer. I know. Well, I was told that, so I'm sticking with that because a deer. It's not really my vibe at all. I don't know if you guys get that, but it's not my vibe. But I was told this is the year for compassion.
I'm gonna go with grasshopper. Little, but inquisitive, and likes to jump off and leap into new things.
Okay, if the audience wants to connect with you, how would they do that?
You can go for me, you can go to theseekingcenter.com/event, and actually you can find both my information as well as Michelle's information on there. You can also listen to the Seeking Center podcast, which is everywhere. And you can also follow us at the Seeking Center on Instagram.
What she said.
You can find me at withritual.com. We'll be launching some really beautiful matcha cacao products this summer. And this fall, we'll be doing some cacao ceremonies and some tastings of nourishing rituals that you can incorporate into your daily life.
And for me, I will send an e-copy of my book to everybody. So if you are not about to lose a pet or have not just lost a pet, feel free to share with somebody that has. And you will know way more about me than you ever wanted to know, because it's all in the book.
And listen to you on the Seeking Center podcast.
Or just listen to the podcast even faster. Let's leave the audience with a very quick nugget. What do you want them to leave with today?
I would say trust your gut. that is your intuition. And if you get a certain feeling about someone or something, believe it. That is your inner knowing.
That love is a frequency. And for everyone in this room, love is also money. And money is also a frequency. So the more love for what you do, the more love for yourself, the more love that we're sharing, higher frequencies.
Ooh, that was a good one. You follow that? I would say that in your business journey and in your wellness journey, everyone's experience is going to be different. Your wellness journey is going to be different. So, create something different and personal to your own personal experiences, and don't be afraid to be authentic to yourself.
Awesome. Let's thank this panel for being here. And last
Thanks,
time,
Gale.
you're all here for a reason.